Welcome to the world of unexpected love stories. If you're just joining us, we invite you to subscribe to our channel and share your appreciation for this video with a like. In just a fleeting moment, we find the inspiration to weave even more tales. We invite you to embrace this moment and join us as we delve into the story that awaits. It's surprising to realize how life can lead us to unexpected moments. I was raised in a quaint little town, nurturing dreams of a life filled with simplicity and joy. I united my heart with my college sweetheart, James, in a time when we were both youthful and brimming with dreams. Though our possessions were few, the bond we shared was profound, and that alone filled our hearts with warmth. At least, that was my belief. Reflecting on the past, I can now perceive the subtle hints of what lay ahead. Yet in that moment, it was beyond my wildest dreams. When James and I first stepped into the cozy embrace of our rented home, we encountered Mr. Thompson, our landlord. The dwelling may have been modest, yet it held the warmth of our shared moments. It possessed a warm allure, a quaint garden, and a delightful little backyard that captured my heart. James and I felt a thrilling anticipation as we embarked on this new chapter together. Mr. Thompson was a distinguished gentleman, gracefully navigating his early 60s. His face radiated warmth, a gentle smile lighting up our encounters. He was the type of landlord who would occasionally drop by, his presence a gentle reminder that everything was as it should be within the house. I recall the moment he arrived to mend the broken fence. His politeness was disarming, as he inquired if we required anything, effortlessly weaving small talk about the transformations the neighborhood had undergone through the years. At that time, it barely crossed my mind. He was simply a warm, older gentleman. Yet, a gentle transformation began to unfold. With James's work pulling him away more frequently, I discovered the quiet of the house enveloping me in solitude. It was during these moments that I started to see Mr. Thompson in a new and intriguing way. He would come by unexpectedly more frequently, occasionally to see how the house was faring, other times simply to share a moment of conversation. Initially, I perceived it as something innocuous. After all, he held the keys to our shared space. Yet, as the days passed, I sensed a subtle change in the way we spoke to each other. One afternoon, as I tended to the garden in the backyard, Mr. Thompson happened to visit. He had been visiting more often, and while I appreciated his presence, there was an unsettling quality to his arrivals that I couldn't quite shake. His kindness enveloped me, yet beneath it lay a depth of intensity in his gaze that stirred a sense of unease within me. On that particular afternoon, he lingered a little longer than usual. Our conversation flowed from the gentle whispers of the weather to the vibrant hues of the garden, and eventually meandered into the depths of life itself. In those moments, I started to feel a deeper connection in the way he carried himself. "Do you find joy in this place?" he inquired that day, his gaze lingering on me in a manner that stirred a sense of vulnerability within. Uncertainty lingered in my mind, leaving me at a loss for words. Certainly, I felt a sense of joy with James, yet an unspoken gap began to emerge between us, particularly with his extended hours at work. There were moments when a sense of solitude enveloped me, even in his presence. Yet, I found myself reluctant to voice that truth to Mr. Thompson, not in the open. I offered a soft smile and a gentle nod, attempting to set the thought aside, yet Mr. Thompson remained persistent, refusing to let it fade. At times, he remarked, "It's simple to overlook the significance of having someone to confide in, to sense that someone is genuinely attuned to your words." There was something in the way he spoke that stirred a deep, tingling sensation within me. His words hung in the atmosphere, resonating softly even after he had departed. I dismissed it, reassuring myself that it was merely an innocent exchange. Yet, as Mr. Thompson continued to visit, I began to perceive delicate changes in the way he carried himself. His compliments, once light and playful, started to resonate with a depth I had never experienced before. He would express admiration for my appearance, noting the care I put into myself and the way I tended to our home. Initially, I perceived his actions as mere kindness, yet gradually, It became clear that he was attuned to nuances that eluded everyone else. As the sun dipped below the horizon, James found himself miles away on a business trip. On a serene night, I found myself nestled on the couch, lost in the pages of a book when the doorbell chimed softly. Surprised by the unexpected presence, I paused for a moment, caught in a gentle uncertainty before responding. As I opened the door, I was greeted by Mr. Thompson, his smile warm and inviting. He mentioned he was nearby and decided to drop in, wanting to ensure that all was well. I offered a gentle smile, gracefully stepping aside to welcome him in. His unexpected visits had woven themselves into the fabric of my days, so I welcomed him without a second thought. He entered the living room, and our conversation flowed effortlessly, just like it always did. Yet, this time, an unusual tension lingered in the atmosphere. There was a certain intensity in his gaze that stirred a mix of emotions within me, leaving me feeling unsettled. It was subtle, a mere glance that held for a moment longer than usual, yet it stirred something deep within me, quickening my heartbeat. As we conversed, Mr. Thompson drew nearer to me than he typically would. The distance that once separated us began to dissolve, and his presence enveloped me with an undeniable intensity. I recall the sound of my laughter, tinged with unease, as I attempted to dismiss the tightening sensation in my chest that his words had stirred. I reassured myself that his warmth was merely a gesture of friendship, convincing myself that my feelings were an overreaction. But then, as if attuned to my unease, Mr. Thompson leaned in a little closer and rested his hand softly on the arm of the couch. "You know," he said, "it's a rare gift to encounter someone like you. A person who truly hears you. A person who genuinely holds you in their heart." The words appeared harmless at first glance, yet there was an undercurrent in his voice, a subtle inflection that sent a shiver down my spine. I felt the urge to distance myself, to express my unease, yet I held back. Instead, I let out a nervous laugh and drew my legs close to my chest, seeking to establish a barrier between us, even if only in the physical sense. Mr. Thompson observed the change in my stance, and for a fleeting moment, an intimate silence enveloped us. He gazed at me, his eyes gentle, yet there was an intensity within them that I couldn't overlook. "I never intended to put you in an awkward position," he murmured, his voice soft and inviting. "Your presence is truly valued, and I wanted to express that to you. There's something truly remarkable about you, Linda." The sound of my name on his lips sent a shiver through me. My heart raced within me, leaving me at a loss for words. I longed to express something, anything to ease the heaviness in the air, yet the words eluded me. It felt like I was enveloped in the moment, held still in a delicate embrace. Before I had the chance to speak, Mr. Thompson rose to his feet. With a gentle smile, he added, "I suppose I should let you return to your evening." Yet, there was an intriguing quality in the smile, an elusive essence that I couldn't quite identify. "I wanted to reach out and see how you're feeling." I nodded, feeling a tightness in my throat, and watched him as he walked away from the house. As the door softly clicked shut behind him, a breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped my lips. I lingered by the door, lost in thought, as time seemed to stretch endlessly, searching for clarity in the aftermath of what had just unfolded. Never before had I experienced such a whirlwind of emotions within me. A part of me longed to share my truth with James, yet another part held back, wrapped in a shroud of shame and fear of his judgment. I never intended to create any difficulties. I wished to avoid planting any seeds of doubt in his mind, or, even more so, stirring up his anger. As I pondered the situation, I became increasingly aware of the emotions Mr. Thompson stirred within me, feelings I could no longer overlook. It felt off, and I had no desire to nurture it. Still, I couldn't dismiss the sense that his visits held deeper meanings than he revealed. What was I meant to do? With each passing day, Mr. Thompson found himself drawn to visit more often. Every time he visited, a familiar wave of tension and uncertainty washed over me. I attempted to set it aside, yet it grew increasingly difficult to overlook. There was an undeniable allure about him that sent a thrill through me, leaving me curious and captivated. I understood the need for caution, aware that I mustn't allow the situation to spiral beyond my control. Yet, I sensed that beneath the surface, a transformation was quietly unfolding. I was unaware of the profound depths that awaited me. As the days flowed into weeks, the unspoken connection between Mr. Thompson and me deepened, charged with an undeniable intensity. I had yet to share with James the peculiar moments I experienced with our landlord. A part of me trembled at the thought that he might not grasp my feelings, or, even more daunting, that he could respond with anger and disappointment. In the end, I was merely reaching out with warmth, wasn't I? It was merely a fleeting exchange, nothing deeper, was it? I reminded myself of that each time Mr. Thompson appeared at the house unexpectedly, attempting to dismiss the flutter of unease that stirred within me. Yet, the discomfort had grown too profound to dismiss any longer. The memory of Mr. Thompson's gaze lingered in my mind, the subtle way his fingers brushed against the armrest of the couch during that visit, as if he were reaching for something deeper, something beyond the boundaries of mere neighborly or landlord-tenant ties. I found myself revisiting that moment repeatedly in my thoughts, each time feeling the intensity within me deepen. On that serene Tuesday evening, I stood in the kitchen, the soft sounds of my knife meeting the fresh vegetables, lost in the moment as I prepared for dinner. Cooking had always brought me joy, but tonight it seemed to weigh heavily on my heart rather than soothe it. My mind wandered, a gentle tug pulling at my senses, as if the air around me was charged with anticipation, hinting that something significant was on the horizon. The moment I began to sprinkle the spices over the chicken, the soft chime of the doorbell echoed through the air, stirring a sense of anticipation within me. My heart fluttered with a sudden rush of emotion. I gazed through the kitchen window, and there he was, Mr. Thompson at the door, his familiar warm smile lighting up the moment. It had been a few days since I last saw him, and instead of feeling a sense of relief, an unexpected tension began to twist within me. I gently dried my hands on the soft towel, inhaled deeply, and made my way to the door with a sense of anticipation. "Good evening, Linda," Mr. Thompson greeted warmly as I opened the door. "I hope I'm not intruding on a moment." "No, not at all," I responded, a smile playing on my lips despite the heaviness in my heart. I moved aside to welcome him in, and he crossed the threshold effortlessly, as if it were the most instinctive act imaginable. He cast a fleeting look around, his gaze lingering momentarily on the kitchen, where I was immersed in the art of preparing dinner. The air was filled with a delightful aroma, he remarked, his eyes softly resting on the dish I was preparing. "Your culinary skills are impressive," I acknowledged with a gentle nod, feeling a mix of admiration and uncertainty about how to continue the conversation. "It's a modest meal for dinner, nothing extravagant." Mr. Thompson chuckled softly. "You always say that, but you have a remarkable talent for turning the simplest moments into something truly special." The compliment was pleasant, I suppose, but it carried a unique weight when it came from him. It felt different from the kind words I had received from friends or even James. There was a depth to his gaze, as if he was perceiving something within me that transcended the mere food or the home. A wave of unease washed over me once more, yet I made an effort to set it aside. "Thank you," I murmured, letting it linger in the air. "Is there something you desire? I gather you've come to explore something, haven't you?" Mr. Thompson's expression softened ever so slightly. He appeared to linger in thought before answering. "I was hoping we could share a moment of conversation. It feels like ages since we last shared a meaningful exchange." A wave of unexpected feelings washed over me. Our encounters had always been filled with light exchanges, yet we had never taken the time to delve into a deeper conversation. I sensed his presence nearby more often, yet I was unprepared for his desire to engage in a more profound conversation. A wave of unease washed over me, yet I nodded in response. "Of course, let's take a moment to sit together." I guided him into the living room, inviting him to settle onto the couch with a gentle motion of my hand. I found myself seated across from him, in the familiar chair that cradled me during those evenings when James and I would lose ourselves in the glow of the television. An uneasy stillness lingered in the air before Mr. Thompson's voice broke through, carrying a weight of seriousness I had never encountered in him before. He started with a gentle pace. "I've found myself reflecting deeply on life lately, contemplating the way everything evolves with the passage of time. It's simple to become immersed in the routine of life, to overlook the essence of what truly holds significance. I found myself uncertain about the direction he was taking. I understand your feelings," I replied softly. "In the whirlwind of life, it can be challenging to hold onto the moments that truly matter." Mr. Thompson nodded, his gaze lingering on mine with an intensity that stirred something deep within. "Precisely. Yet, it's essential to pause and reflect, ensuring that we are genuinely experiencing life, rather than merely existing in its rhythm." His words stirred a flutter of emotions within me, leaving me in a delicate state of uncertainty, unsure of how to articulate my feelings. I found myself lost in the depths of his suggestion, uncertain if I truly wished to uncover its meaning. "Linda," he murmured gently, inclining his head just a touch closer. "It's hard to put into words, but from the moment we met, there's been a unique bond between us that I can't seem to shake off. I've lost count of how often I reflect on our conversations, the grace with which you move through life. Your essence is truly captivating, and expressing the depth of my admiration for you feels almost beyond words." A soft gasp escaped my lips, a moment suspended in time. His words carried a warmth, yet they resonated like a heartfelt revelation. There was a certain quality in his words that sent a flutter through my chest, though it was not a pleasant sensation. A wave of uncertainty washed over me, leaving me feeling confined and hesitant in my response. My thoughts swirled, searching for the right words to ease the thick atmosphere that enveloped us. I found myself at a loss for words, my voice soft and delicate, barely escaping my lips. "Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Thompson, but I must mention that I am committed to my marriage. My heart is deeply intertwined with my husband, a love that fills my soul." He appeared untouched by what I had said. Instead, he reclined in his chair, his gaze lingering on me for a moment, his expression a mystery. "I understand," he murmured softly, his tone laced with a hint of regret. "I hope this doesn't put you in an awkward position, Linda, but I can't ignore the emotions that stir within me." His words sent a shiver of warmth coursing through my being. His admiration for me had been voiced before, yet this moment felt uniquely profound. His gaze held a depth that was profoundly captivating, an intensity that stirred the soul. A wave of uncertainty and trepidation washed over me. This had transformed from a simple landlord's check-in into something deeper, something that left me feeling uncertain about how to respond. "I don't wish to create any tension between you and your husband," Mr. Thompson continued, "but I can no longer ignore the undeniable pull I feel towards you. I simply needed to share my feelings with you." Words eluded me. I parted my lips, yet the thoughts remained unspoken. I found myself torn, not wishing to cause him pain, yet reluctant to offer him any illusions of what might be. What was I meant to do in this moment? How can I convey to him that I am committed to my marriage and not seeking anything beyond my relationship with James? At last, I inhaled deeply, feeling my heart race within me. "Mr. Thompson," I spoke with a gentle resolve, "I appreciate your honesty, but I must express my thoughts clearly to you. I am devoted to my husband and cherish our bond. Your kindness means a lot to me, but I must clarify that I am only seeking a landlord-tenant relationship." A lingering silence hung between us, and I noticed the shadow of disappointment dance in his gaze. He gazed at his hands, a soft nod escaping his lips. "I see," he murmured softly. "I apologize if my actions caused you any discomfort. That was never my desire." I nodded, a wave of tranquility enveloping me. The tension between us began to fade, yet left a subtle, haunting feeling in the air. A lingering sensation enveloped me, an unshakable belief that everything had irrevocably changed, that Mr. Thompson's emotions for me would persist regardless of my own recognition of them. He rose, and I mirrored his movement. "Thank you for listening," he murmured, his voice gentle yet tinged with a trace of melancholy. "I'll allow you to enjoy your evening in peace. I want you to feel comfortable, Linda, and I truly honor your boundaries. I simply wish to share my feelings with you." I managed a smile, attempting to mask the turmoil that lingered within me. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," I whispered softly. "I'll catch you later." As he stepped through the door, I lingered for a moment, gazing at the void he left behind. My thoughts swirled in a captivating dance. I found myself in disbelief over the recent turn of events. I found myself in a moment of connection with our landlord, even though I was still bound to James. What was happening, and why did it seem as though my whole existence was gently coming apart at the seams? I gently shook my head, attempting to dispel the lingering doubts that clouded my mind. I found myself drawn to the essence of my life with James, cherishing the deep love and unwavering commitment that intertwined our souls. Yet a subtle, persistent whisper within me suggested that this was just the beginning of something more profound. Following my conversation with Mr. Thompson, I endeavored to set aside the entire situation from my thoughts. I hoped it wouldn't cast a shadow over my connection with James, and I certainly wished to keep things uncomplicated with our landlord. Yet, despite my efforts to conceal my emotions, they lingered, refusing to fade away. The weight of guilt and confusion enveloped me, leaving me in a state of perpetual reflection about our encounter. A few days later, Mr. Thompson made an unexpected appearance once more. A flutter of anticipation stirred within me as the doorbell rang. I found myself unprepared for yet another uncomfortable exchange, yet deep down, I understood the necessity of confronting it directly. I gently pushed the door open, striving to maintain my calm demeanor. "Hello, Linda." He welcomed me, his voice rich with warmth yet tenderly measured. "I wanted to reach out and see how everything is going with the house." I nodded, a smile gently curving my lips. "All is well, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate your inquiry." He appeared to pause, a moment of uncertainty lingering in the air before he moved forward. "I've been reflecting deeply on our last conversation. It was never my intention to create any unease for you. I acknowledge your limits, and I honor them deeply. I felt the need to express what was in my heart." I gazed at him, letting the significance of his words linger in the air between us. I needed to embrace my strength in this moment. There was only clarity in the air. "I appreciate your understanding," I responded, "but I must express my thoughts clearly. I am in a committed relationship. My heart is devoted to my marriage with James, and I must guard it against any distractions. While I cherish the connection we've built in our professional journey, I believe it is best to keep it within those boundaries." Mr. Thompson's expression became gentler, yet a trace of melancholy lingered in his gaze. He nodded gently, embracing my words with a quiet understanding. "I see," he murmured softly. "I apologize if I crossed a line." I inhaled deeply, embracing a wave of tranquility that washed over me. "It's all right. I simply wish to ensure that we share a mutual understanding." He offered a gentle, respectful nod before turning to depart. As he walked away, I lingered in the doorway, observing his departure, enveloped in a swirl of feelings. A sense of melancholy washed over me, knowing it had reached this point, yet a deeper part of me felt a warm gratitude for finally establishing the boundaries I so desperately needed. That evening, James and I shared a meal, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely immersed in the moment. The experiences of the past weeks lingered in my heart, yet I understood the necessity of embracing the journey ahead. I found myself drawn to the essence of what truly mattered: my family, my unwavering commitment to James, and the deep connection we nurtured together. "Is everything all right?" James inquired, sensing the softness in my demeanor. A soft smile graced my lips as I endeavored to set aside the lingering thoughts that danced in my mind. "Yes, I'm lost in thought. Having you here feels so right." He returned my smile, gently holding my hand. There's a comforting warmth in being back where the heart feels at ease. In that moment, I understood that despite the tangled web of feelings and uncertainties, my focus was unmistakably defined. I needed to safeguard the bond one shared with James. I was determined to let nothing and no one stand in our path, and deep down, I felt that together we would navigate any challenge that came our way.